All right, let's talk about something that a lot of you might know, maybe a little too well. We're going to dive into the psychology behind that feeling of isolation that, believe it or not, can come from being highly intelligent.
You know that feeling, right? You're at a party, maybe a work meeting, and there are people everywhere, laughing, chatting, and you're there, but you're not really there. It's like you're watching it all from behind a pane of glass, and you just can't connect.
Now, it's so easy to blame yourself for that feeling, right? To think, oh, I'm just shy, or I'm antisocial. But what if it's not that at all? Psychology actually points to something way more interesting. That for some of us, feeling like an outsider isn't a flaw. It's a direct result of how your brain is built.
Okay, so let's break this down. The first big reason for this disconnect is something cognitive psychology calls a social mismatch.
So what does that really mean? Well, think of it like this. It's a difference in your brain's processing speed. It's not about being better or smarter. It's about your mind running at a completely different frequency from the conversation happening around you.
And this really shows you the contrast. On one side, you have your typical social chat. It's comfortable, it's familiar, it moves along at a steady pace. But on the other side, you've got a mind that's hungry for complexity, for something new. And that gap, well, that gap can make a normal conversation feel like it's happening in slow motion.
And here's the real kicker. Your brain is literally wired to want deep, complex stuff to chew on. So when it doesn't get that, conversations become draining. You leave feeling totally exhausted instead of energized because you spent the whole time trying to force your brain to slow down.
But it's not just about speed, it's also about depth. And that brings us to the second piece of the puzzle, the mind of an overanalyzer, a mind that's pretty much built to take everything apart and see how it works.
If you're highly intelligent, chances are your brain is like a super sensitive radar for patterns, for inconsistencies, for things that just don't add up. You're the one who always spots the tiny flaw in the plan, or hears that little contradiction in what someone just said.
And man, this is where it can get so frustrating, isn't it? Because when you see a problem that seems so glaringly obvious to you, but everyone else just wants to ignore it, trying to go along to get along can feel almost physically painful. It creates this constant tension.
This all feeds into what can feel like the huge burden of chronic overthinking. Your brain just doesn't have an off switch. High IQ minds are constantly processing way more variables at once, always digging for deeper meanings and connecting the dots.
It creates this endless loop, you know? Other people might have a conversation and then they just move on. But for you, your mind is still working on it, turning it over, analyzing every little layer for hours or even days after it happened.
And here's where it gets even more personal. That deep analysis isn't just for things out there like plans and conversations. It has a massive impact on your own inner emotional world.
Because you're analyzing your own feelings with that same intensity, you tend to experience them on a much deeper, more complex level. And that makes it incredibly hard to just explain how you're feeling to someone else in a simple way. For some, especially if you've been through tough situations, this evolves into something we call hyper-awareness. And honestly, it's a pretty powerful survival skill, this ability to read a room before anyone even says a word.
So what is your brain actually reading? It's all the unspoken stuff. The tiny shifts in mood, the hidden intentions behind the words, the subtle power plays happening. It's the subtext that, frankly, most people just miss completely.
So you can imagine, right? When you see all these hidden layers of what people are doing and saying, it makes it really, really hard to just trust people easily. And what that often leads to is a powerful sense of self-reliance. You learn to trust yourself. And yeah, that can feel like being on an island, but there's a kind of incredible freedom in that too.
Okay, so what do you do with all of this? Here's the most important part. You don't fight it. You can't fight how you're wired. The key is to understand it and then to completely reframe the experience. I mean, this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Being smart isn't a golden ticket to an easy life. It's more like a ticket to a life that's deeper, more nuanced, and, yeah, sometimes a whole lot heavier, but also incredibly rich.
So I want you to really hear this, especially if you spent your whole life feeling kind of out of sync with everyone else. This feeling, it is not a flaw in your character.
It's a feature. It's part of your mind's architecture. Your brain is literally built to see the world with a kind of complexity and richness that most people just don't have access to.
And that right there is the entire point. The minute you truly understand the why behind all of this, you can finally stop blaming yourself. You can start to work with your unique mind instead of against it, and you can start protecting your own peace. So that brings us to the final thought.
Knowing this about yourself isn't a limitation, it's a roadmap. It gives you information. So the real question, the one I want to leave you with, is this. Now that you know, how are you going to protect your mental